All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to Office Hours. It's August 12th, 2020. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the CEO and founder of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and then showing you the ropes. If that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time and jump in to participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel, as well as to follow up with an email that you can share with your team. So with that said, let's kick this off. I got a couple fun announcements to make. Oopsie. Went a little bit ahead of myself there. Yeah, so first is the SuiteOps talent directory. I think I'm really excited about this. We have a lot of contractors in our community, a lot of people using the Cloud Posse modules, a lot of stuff, people doing rad things with Kubernetes and Terraform. And I want to pay it forward. So if you need some help and it's maybe on a smaller side of a project, this is a perfect place to go. Just head over to suiteops.com/hire and you'll see a small directory of some of the talent in our community. I'm inviting anybody who's a regular participant, regular contributor to our GitHub projects to register. Just click on the top link here, register in our directory, and submit the information that you feel comfortable submitting. Almost everything is optional. I'm gonna vet every submission, and classify them person as a contributor or participant or member. But contributors are people who have been regularly contributing pull requests to our repositories. And that's a big vote of confidence in my book, that they're a good community participant. And participant is just that they're regularly participating in conversations and helping people out in Slack. And member is just, they're part of the crew. So if you're interested, head over there and sign up. Any questions about that?
Yeah, what is that exactly? One more time.
Yeah. So
like you said, you want to pay it forward. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I get a lot of inbound leads, obviously, with Cloud Posse, and we're very select about the kinds of companies we work with because we have to filter for the kinds of companies that fit the solution that we deliver. So we predominantly work with venture-backed startups who've raised, tens of millions, have a pretty big spend on AWS and some sophisticated requirements. Many companies, though, reach out because they found us by way of our modules and things like that. And they have some smaller projects that are just, it's hard for us to do the smaller projects because we invest so much as being a partner with our customers. So for the smaller projects, I would love to refer them to somebody in our community that already knows the kind of stuff we do and can deliver similar results, just not as, we're like bringing in the infantry and you don't need that. So so if you're a contractor, definitely submit. If you're looking for some extra help, this is a great place to look and filter. If you open up any of these, Matt Gowie, by the way, he's on the call here. He's a regular. He's pretty awesome. You can see what their expertise are. Their Slack username, so you can reach out to them directly. Optionally, a CV, and a little bit about what sets them apart from some of the others in the community.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions related to the talent directory?
Is this a good place to get started on contracting if we're interested?
Yeah, if you want to, definitely, if you want to, submit your profile here. And I mean, the best thing is if you have been, I forget, Michael, I don't know what your Git username is, but if you've been a regular contributor to any of the modules and stuff, that's really who I want to promote as a result of this and encourage others to reach that status. As a way of doing that. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention about this, there is a private Slack channel for contractors in our community that people who submit this and meet certain criteria, I invite into that channel, and that's where I'm passing the leads on and making introductions. All right.
Great, Eric.
Maybe a fun question to bounce around for a little bit might be, hey, I'm thinking about maybe trying to do some contracting. What do you guys think about that? And go over tips and tricks and, learned lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. Also a place, to share that kind of inside trade knowledge.
Hey, I just joined a little bit late, Eric. Is this a posting of people that are willing to be hired just for contract, or is it also full-time?
Technically, there's a, so here's what it is like when you register. Users can specify if they're, what type of opportunities they're looking for. And let's see here, employment opportunities, they can specify employee, contractor, or other. But mostly, my initial goal here is to make this mostly catered towards contractors, independent freelancers, and stuff like that. However, every now and then, I do see people posting like they're looking for employment opportunities. This is a good place also to register for that. Just I won't be able to pass leads on the same way I would to contractors. So yeah, once you fill this out, right now there's no way to edit that information afterwards. Just hit me up on Slack and I'll gladly make any adjustments for you. If it, this is a MVP, you could say, and I want to see how it goes. And if there's interest in it, and we're able to help, help companies looking for contractors and help contractors find work, definitely will continue to invest in this and make it a better solution. All right, and then last week we talked about the Ops Genie stuff and our strategy for that. We have officially released the first release, 0.1.0, for our Ops Genie module. It is a composite module built of sub-modules here that you can use independently. We're actually starting this week using it on 0.13, and there are some things we need to change to make it compatible with 0.13, so just be aware. But it's a perfect opportunity for me to point out what needs to be changed for those of you who are looking at doing that. The main thing is you cannot, if you want to use for each with modules, you cannot have inline provider blocks like this. So we're going to get rid of that, and that fixes that.
What do you mean? You can't have it inline in the module at all?
No, you got to pass it as an argument to the module when you invoke it.
Oh.
Yeah. And
so is that going to be a new update across the board that we like accept?
We almost never do this. There's very few places we do this. We do this with like minuscule providers like GitHub, or Ops. But for AWS, you never do that, right? Because if you want to be use multiple AWS providers for like multi-region, this has been an anti-pattern. And like this is actually not news per se. They've given us months of headway, or what is it? They've given us months of heads up that this was coming. We just only it's one of those things, path of least resistance. Now we have to fix it, so we are. We have a couple modules related to ECS for GitHub. That work together with code build and code pipeline that embed the GitHub provider. Those are going to need to be updated. I think Matt, you might be using some of those, or at least Pepe. I know he is definitely.
I've run into it once before in the past, but Pepe has definitely been the one that's run into it more recently and like kind of shaked his fist at it for sure.
Yeah, he's awesome. He is super awesome. All right. The other thing, if you guys are Helm file users, you maybe saw my announcement on this, and I just want to bring some attention to, first of all, a relatively new feature of GitHub. So GitHub has the ability to sponsor developers directly. There's an amazing developer like Mumoshu here, who is a maintainer of projects like Helm file, Helm diff, regular contributor to Helm and Flagger, EKSCTL, has a whole bunch of his own projects. We use probably at least 60% of the stuff that he develops. So, so I feel bad about not having supported him sooner, but we definitely now do support him. And I see a number of members here. Andrew, I thought that was really awesome, man, that you you chipped in. Andre, one of our developers, did that too. Just be aware that some of the projects you use, there might be a starving developer behind the scenes that would appreciate the contribution.
I mean, this is their passion. Like,
yeah, this is, yeah.
People like this love to do this stuff, and the more they get to do it, the more all of our lives get, the better all of our lives get. My philosophy is, if he's saved me a couple of hours of time, I'm going to buy him a beer,
Totally.
and that's, the $5 a month or something is, equivalent. I'm equating it to that, so that's what I did.
They're exactly. You don't have to chip in at, a high tier or anything. They're low tiers, right? That you can sponsor many of the developers at. They decide what they want and what that goes towards. And what I wanted to say, well, like, here's the other thing is that, not everyone realizes how much, like, you're an open source maintainer, and there's what it feels like to be an open source maintainer. This is one of the best articles.
Totally thankless.
By Nolan Lawson. He wrote, this is a little bit older now, but it still totally applies. And, outside your door stands a line of a few hundred people. They're patiently waiting for you to answer their questions, complaints, pull requests, and feature requests. You want to help all of them, but for now you're putting it off. Maybe you had a hard day at work, or you're tired, or you're just trying to enjoy the weekend with your family. But you go to GitHub notifications, and there's a constant reminder of all the people waiting. And I just like it. As a maintainer, dude, this resonates with me. There's by and large, people are nice, but then you get a few people are just so entitled, or just pissed off that you ruined like 5 hours of their day trying to track down a bug, and it gets to you after a while. So I think that this is a small way to pay it forward to these real troopers out there supporting open source projects like Helmfile and others. So just throwing in my hat for that. I'll share this link in the Slack channel as well. So that sounds interesting. All right. So let's see the next talking point there. So the elephant in the room here is that Terraform 0.13 dropped. That went pretty fast after RC1. I think with 0.12, there are a few more release candidates before it hit. But it's out, GA. You can go to GitHub releases, download it. We've started distributing the Cloud Posse packages. If you've been following anything with this, you probably already know what the major improvements are. It's basically that you can iterate on modules. You can use depends on to set up the relationships, the order, the DAG for your modules. And another really big one is like, so providers in Terraform are like operators in Kubernetes. And that's where the business logic goes for managing more complex operations that cannot be expressed just simply by the Terraform DSL. And companies left and right are embracing providers for their products. Terraform, Cloud obviously by HashiCorp has it, but many others like Keycloak, we use that provider for managing the Keycloak IDP. Cloudflare has one. Domino's has one. You get the point. There's one out there for everything. And it's been a real pain in the butt up until 0.13 to install those. You had to do it yourself. Unlike Terraform modules, which all happen transparently, automatically, just by specifying a remote source. Now that same thing has come to Terraform. Also, like before, only official providers were distributed easily with Terraform. Now, unofficial providers can be just as easily distributed just by registering that provider in the registry as you would register a Terraform module. So this is good news for everyone doing a lot more than just single cloud operations with Terraform. Any questions or observations or exciting things you'd like to point out with Terraform 0.13?
Don't try to use it. I tried to use it yesterday. A lot of modules are
Oh, yeah.
ready. Shout out to Clopos. You started updating some of them.
Yeah. No, yeah. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. And we brought that up on other office hours, but it's definitely worth reiterating right now is that we do provider pinning and we do a Terraform version pinning in our modules because of these kinds of things. So it's a double-edged sword. What happens is for about 12 months out of the year, everything is wonderful. And we reduce the number of issues about, hey, this doesn't work for my version of Terraform AWS, or this doesn't work for my version of Terraform. And that has been eliminated by doing very strict pinning in all of our modules everywhere. But once a year, we get a storm of emails saying, hey, when is this going to support 0.13? It just dropped 2 hours ago. And that's what we're dealing with right now. So we are going through updating all of our modules to support pinning for the new versions of Terraform. However, we are also updating our test infrastructure to have Terraform 13 so we can run the tests to really validate that it works. So Matt Galley on the call, also a contractor, by the way, available for hire, it has opened up I don't know how many pull requests it was, 70 pull requests or so to update that. So we front loaded the work. What's catching up to that is merging it and or the test infrastructure. All right.
And there's a next step to that, which is going to be that we now need to, and Vlad,
yes.
you might have actually brought this up, but we now need to, update all the Terraform null label versions.
Yeah.
Because since they're on 0.16, which pins 12, then
There
it kind
are
of causes this cascade
problems here. So you know what? I'm thinking aloud here, and I poo-pooed against it before, but now I'm wondering if we just got to bite the bullet and do it. Go ahead and enable the Dependabot on all the Terraform module repos, so those pull requests happen automatically. So what happens is if we bump null label, it'll automatically cascade to all other repos, and it's just going to be a lot of PR storms that we got to go and approve and merge, but it's gonna. But what this means is because we have Terra tests, because we're doing strict pinning, we know when things break, as opposed to just accepting PRs left and right for updates and trying to maintain stability that way, which doesn't work.
I wasn't fully paying attention, but you said Dependabot, and then I started paying attention. I spent like 2 hours trying to figure out how we can so we had to peg our AWS provider before we weren't pegging them recently. This is for private Terraform repos. But Atlantis tried to deploy something that didn't work because the provider updates were
broke a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so we finally have to peg those versions. But our team doesn't want to deal with maintaining the updates of those versions, and so many other people use so many providers. So Dependabot could auto submit updates to those provider things. But I wanted to use something that did that.
It's in preview.
Okay, anybody using stuff to do A, provider updates, B, Terraform updates, or B part to Terraform updates when using Atlantis, which I know Eric is not super supportive of, but my Atlantis YAML file pegs the version of Terraform for each project, and I want something to automatically update those inside of a JSON file. All right, sorry, a YAML file.
I'm doing that.
Is it how
it's
much?
Working okay. I posted the GitHub workflow Terraform support for Dependabot is in beta preview alpha something. It's not released. You cannot get to it. But
where did you post your action?
Office hours in the office hours channels in Slack.
I'll find it.
The Dependabot with Terraform support is developed in public, and it's a branch. And there's Patrick Jans who took that, created the GitHub Actions that runs that specific version and updates your dependencies.
Nice.
It works lovely.
That's a good tip. So yes, we were on the beta. I mean, we were in the original Dependabot going back a couple of years here, and that had Terraform support, and we're still grandfathered into that. So I guess that's why it's been working for us. But But yeah, that's a good advice there. I didn't know about that that lack of support in the public beta for the preview for Dependabot.
So, but the Patrick Johns, I mean, I guess we've been using Dependabot for a long time too. So I should be able to just copy that action that you posted because it looks like exactly what I want.
It works. I can.
I'll
I
find
can
his
kind of
source.
post this.
So I have a related question
Yeah, go for it.
to the you know, talking about the PR storms and everything. I am suffering from extreme, you know, I think the common term is alarm fatigue, desensitization of, you know, all the emails and everything. How do you guys handle that? Like I get, you know, 60 or 70 emails from, you know, the Cloud Posse GitHub a day. And I have caught myself multiple times just swipe, and not even looking at any of them.
Yeah, honestly, that is the state of things for a lot of us. That's why we miss so much. Part of me is hoping that getting more contributors into the sway of things will help, but there's too much activity, too many PRs, too many issues that it's hard. I will say though that the new, what is it? The GitHub notifications now is pretty nice. It does support an inbox zero workflow. And it does have kind of a declare bankruptcy button up here in the right, get started, and it clears all your notifications so you can start at 0. But then once you have that, now you can very easily sort by like kind of some of the priority here. But you know, it kind of sucks that I have 765 you know, pull request notifications here, reviews that I got to get through. And yeah, I do need to kind of declare bankruptcy on that.
So do you turn off email notifications? Do you just not get emails at all and you just use this instead as kind of a proactive thing?
Ish. So here's what I do. I'm not recommending this to others, but so first of all, I use Google's priority inbox so that I have the 5 tabs at the top. Then I use Zapier. And I have Zapier automatically archive everything that's not in my main inbox after 30 days. So that keeps my mailbox relatively clean. And then I just, you know, then it's Russian roulette who I click on and who I decide to help out. So it's fair.
I feel like we need like I created that contributor tips and tricks doc, and I feel like we need a how to deal with all of the notifications trick. Like if somebody cracks it, I don't think we've got everybody on today, but you know,
Vlad has some suggestion. What's up?
Yeah, I do a bunch of open source, and there's Octobox. I posted a link in the office hours channel. It's GitHub notifications overpowered. It costs $10 a month, I think, if you want private repos. If you just want public repos, it's fine. And it's fixed notifications for me. You can filter by label, you can filter by stuff attached to you. Yeah, that is the first link.
Okay.
It's also open source, I think. I know, I'm just paying for it because it's saving a lot of time. Like I wake up every morning with at least 400 or 500 emails that I have to scroll through. Like after filtering, I still have 500-ish emails.
Yeah, so it does look a lot like the GitHub one, just on steroids with more like maybe ways of filtering or sorting it.
Yeah, their website should have a better screenshot because this just looks terrible.
Oh, okay. Also, let me, where was I?
definitely check that out. That sounds interesting to me. I mean, I've been kind of just dealing with the flow to your question, Andrew, like just doing like the select all and like my email client and then kind of clearing it out, or like, you know, I'll deal with random ones as they come in. But something like this that I would check every like couple days or something like that might be a good way to kind of deal with it.
So, so Andrew, I wouldn't be offended if you unsubscribed from some of those notifications. and we're talking. So Andrew is part of the contributors group at Cloud Posse. We have about, gosh, I don't know how many are in there. We got about 20 contributors in there right now, of which maybe 50% are active. And we're looking for more contributors. So if you're a regular contributor, reach out to me. But once you are a contributor, you get all the notifications from Cloud Posse's repos, and it's a lot. There's one other app called Trailer, which is also pretty helpful for, that's obviously not going to find what I want. Trailer for GitHub. And it's open source. And it's a widget on your status bar for OS X and lets you prioritize what you see and notifies you when you've been requested for review.
One of the things, so edX has, I don't know, 400 repos, of which at least 230 are open source. Before, it was Wild West for how open source PRs were managed. My team was certainly delinquent and would sometimes ignore a PR for 12 months. Sorry about that. I had hashtag Ansible PRs. But the thing that we recently started doing was to funnel PRs to a team's Jira board that owns those. So each one of the like 12 feature teams at edX has some ownership over certain open source projects or that are also deployed in our own production environment. And if those teams are responsible for handling security updates, so like GitHub security, when it says, hey, you need to go update this version, a PR gets opened, that PR gets assigned. But also the security alerts from GitHub get forwarded to a Jira board. And then the team manager or Scrum, like some person on that team is different for each team, puts that in the backlog and then sees which things they consider urgent and pulls them into like a 2-week sprint. It's like a huge amount of overhead compared to what you guys are talking about as single contributors, but it does work pretty well.
We actually do that as well. I'll be honest. Every time a PR is open, we use Zapier to create a Jira issue for it. And then it works. So assuming one thing, you have the engineering bandwidth to get around to it. Otherwise, you're just back to the same problem. It's just a shared inbox of Jiras and a growing backlog that you can't prioritize.
So is it one Jira backlog? Or one?
Yeah, well, okay, so we're talking for Cloud Posse, and yeah, so we have one internal backlog for that kind of stuff.
So our team didn't get any better at merging PRs to our Ansible open source repo, but we do respond to them and say, hey, sorry, we're not going to merge this now. But other teams got much better at merging open source PRs. So like it worked in either way. We're better at like not having a backlog of things we've ignored. Some teams are merging them and some teams are just now responding to them and saying, no, we're not going to do that. I don't know. It's interesting though, because we can also see that there's 2 particular teams that manage some of our oldest projects, and those OSPRs are always the hairiest. And so their teams are starting to identify like, hey, we've got too much stuff. Like, should we either add more people to the people handling this individual backlog from other teams that aren't having this issue, or should we change something that we can do? And one of the things, just like you've done for Cloud Posse, that we did is created a new open source group and then gave our core committer groups the ability to merge open source PRs. Prior to a few months ago, only edX employees could merge PRs into our primary repos. And we're now at the point where people from like a dozen different companies are now in the first list of 100 people for open source core committers. It's still in process, but we're working on it.
So
I didn't recall you had a lot of open source.
That was my number, right?
The whole edX platform is open source, you're saying?
Well, the Kubernetes manifest files are not, but this Django source code is, and all other 230 repos. So when you say platform, we mean like, yes, you could make a copy of edX, but you need to hire SuiteOps to set it up for you. Or Cloud Posse to set it up for you.
Yeah.
I have to drop off, but I'd love to keep, or you have a quick question?
Okay. Well, thanks for
no, go ahead.
I'll still be watching the office hours chat. I just have at 3 p.m. the conflict. I love talking about open source stuff, and I'm happy to keep picking people's brains on how edX can improve and how I can contribute to more open source, because I don't, basically. But on that note, bye guys.
Fair enough.
So I'm digging into this a little bit more, and it looks like the majority of them come from requesting review from the contributors group, which sends one out to everybody.
Yeah.
What about code owners?
So we have code owners everywhere, and it should be picking 2 people at random. So like, here's how that's set up. So if we go to GitHub, Cloud Posse, and so the code owners assigns it to contributors, and then we have teams.
Yeah.
And then under teams, let me go to that team for contributors. And we go to the settings, code review assignment. And yeah, so it assigns 2 in a round robin fashion.
Yeah.
So if assigning team members, they'll notify them.
So what ends up happening with the, I totally get what this is doing here. The catch is that first assignment to contributors sends a notification out to everyone, but then it goes in and changes it.
Okay. Why don't we try this? I'll click this button. If assigning team members don't notify the entire team.
That works.
Let's see if that helps. The other neat thing, but this works more for your organization. This doesn't work well because this is, let's see here. I don't know if I can add a reminder. I don't know if it supports multiple. Oh, it does support, maybe it does support multiple workspaces. So I have the Cloud Posse workspace. Maybe I can add an additional workspace here. But there is native integration with Slack and reminders. So maybe we could use that in some way to get it away from email and move it into Slack. All right. So related to all this work with 0.13, there is a new provider, which is pretty cool. And this is actually the wrong link here. Oops. But Terraform, Kubernetes, state backend. This is pretty interesting and kind of mind-blowing to me. I hadn't considered this way of operating. So traditionally, companies maybe have one or a handful of state backends. And the more state backends you need to provision, the harder it is to automate the cold start for this. And what's interesting is as we're moving into using Terraform for Kubernetes more and more, maybe it makes sense to store the state of that inside of Kubernetes itself rather than an external backend. For example, when you deploy Helm and Helm 3, it stores all the state for that in config maps and secrets within the namespace of what you're deploying. So this is kind of taking that pattern and applying that pattern to Terraform. So Terraform can store its state, perhaps for the things that you deploy in Kubernetes, on Kubernetes. Now, I'm not sure
it's
how—
It's interesting because it's an even bigger chicken and egg than typical backends, I would think, right? Like with S3 and AWS, it's like S3 is always there. You don't need an S3 cluster you don't need to spin up an S3 cluster to then store your—
Yeah, but if you've looked at the Terraform S3 module that we have, using Terraform to manage Terraform state backends is a little bit of it's definitely a catch-22 and a little awkward, right? Because you gotta first do a plan and apply without the state backend, then you rerun it, and then it asks you to import it, and now you have your state backend. That's not real. That's more like a human automation pattern rather than a Terraform automation pattern. I haven't looked at this, but my guess would be that you don't need to Terraform the backend to create it using the state backend for Kubernetes. This is just my guess. I haven't looked at it. My guess is that you can point it at a cluster, and assuming you have your IAM, your credentials set up correctly with the cluster, it should probably just create it for you automatically. That would be a guess, just to reemphasize. Anybody seen this or looked into it already? So yeah, it looks like quite a few backends here for Terraform now.
I don't get why you'd use this. Like, you would store your Terraform state in a cluster. Now you really need to babysit that cluster.
No, but like what if,
state.
Yeah, no, but it's how you partition your state. This is not saying, okay, okay. Here's my interpretation of it. You can architect things any way you want. The way I see this working is, you would still use S3 or Terraform Cloud for state backends for like all your foundational infrastructure stuff. But for the state of things deployed in Kubernetes, that state is in Kubernetes. You destroy the Kubernetes cluster, those things go away. You don't have artifacts laying around in an S3 bucket. So that's a nice thing.
That makes more sense. When you put it that way, it's like it seems like there's maybe a reasonable, people might use that. I think I would still stick with S3 because maybe I don't know. I'll have to read through this.
It probably makes sense to stick with S3. One consideration for not doing it is like if you're doing a lot of automated testing of your infrastructure and your cluster, and you deploy all your stuff through the cluster, if you want to just be able to nuke that cluster and then have the state disappear for that was deployed in there, that's advantageous. The other thing is like if you're using Helm, you're already doing this. This is just taking that Helm pattern with Helm and applying it to Terraform for things Terraform is managing in Kubernetes.
Oh my God, does this mean that we're gonna see operators that invoke Terraform inside the cluster and manage stuff inside the cluster? Like that's the next step, isn't it?
Yeah, well, HashiCorp already has a Terraform operator for Kubernetes, but it only works with Terraform Cloud. There was an MVP created by Rancher, which is a general purpose Terraform operator for Kubernetes, and it uses config maps to store the plan files and do all of that. Basically, it's Flux for Terraform and operators via an operator. I think that, especially given the acquisition of Rancher, I bet that project is dead in the water. Also, it makes a lot of sense that this operator works with an external continuous delivery platform like Terraform Cloud, because triaging and debugging failures with this stuff, operators are not the best user experience for that. So if an operator can be used as a construct to represent something that you need, but then a platform provisions it for you, and you can deploy that resource with your charts. So what's really cool about this is now you can deploy a Helm chart with a Terraform CRD that provisions an RDS database. And that provisioning of the RDS database goes through the operator, goes through Terraform Cloud, goes through Sentinel, goes through your approval steps, goes through all that other procedural stuff that you would want.
Got it. It's okay. That would be interesting to see. I mean, AWS is working on the same thing with the AWS. What was it? Service broker, which got deprecated, and now it's service operator, and it's weird.
Yeah, they were doing it. Also, I kind of liked the way they were doing it. It was smart. Like basically, they shipped a few canned CloudFormation templates. They put an operator that wrapped those CloudFormation templates, and then the operator, all it did was invoke those templates.
It was so hard to debug.
Yeah, exactly.
And it broke so often.
Yeah, it's beautiful from an architectural perspective. In practice, we got a ways to go before it's operationally the way to go. Yeah, here it is. Terraform KDS, Terraform operator. Let's see what this, I haven't checked on this for a little while. Last release was on May 20th. Recent commits as of a month ago, or recent commits as of 25 minutes ago. That's ironic. And let me guess that that commit was all about that this is alpha. Terraform Cloud and Enterprise, Terraform 0.12 or above. Okay, so yeah. I'll share that in the office hours channel if anyone thought that was interesting.
Line 1's kind of a doozy. Actually naming it the Terraform Cloud Operator.
That's Terraform Cloud Operator for Kubernetes. Oh yeah, that's a good clarification though.
Yeah.
No. Cool. All right. Let's go back to the slides. Boy, we are not getting to any questions today. There were just too many interesting things in announcements to cover. One last announcement, and then we'll get to some questions. This mostly affects us, I'm guessing, but we've been a big fan of the Efs Provisioner, and just 5 days ago, they deprecated it, or they officially announced that it's been deprecated. Let me open this up here. So what was nice about the Efs Provisioner versus the official, was it CN?
Yes,
Storage adapter. Was it the EFS
CSI?
Yeah. So what the EFS Provisioner actually supported using a single EFS file system, creating your volume claims on the fly and having those be directories under that shared file system. And EFS actually becomes more performant the more you use it, the more you put on it. And provisioning lots of EFS file systems, I guess that fits a better security model under certain circumstances, but in practice, don't like it. And unfortunately, the CSI driver for EFS requires now every time you want to use an EFS-backed file system, you're actually going to provision a whole new EFS file system. And no bueno.
That really sucks. We use that a lot too.
Yeah.
EFS Provisioner.
Yeah, so I don't know. I gotta find, like, maybe there's a feature request for this. I have not studied it further. It was brought to my attention by Nuru, who's on our team, and they didn't really get his question. So, all right, let's move into questions. Well, so when I put this together, there weren't any questions in the Slack channel office hours. Let me first prioritize those if there are any. I'm gonna jump open a tab for that.
I added
official Helm
one
chart
thing
hasn't.
Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
The official Helm chart for EFS Provisioner in the stable repo does not say anything about it being deprecated yet.
Yeah, they probably haven't opened the PR for that yet. Maybe, who knows? Maybe somebody
Isn't the whole stable repo deprecated? No, it's happening in October.
Yeah, the whole stable chart repo is in maintenance mode. Like, you can submit PRs and fix things, but you can't submit new charts. What I thought you were going to say was the whole project or org that the EFS Provisioner was in. I think that whole thing has been deprecated. So where was that? I don't know. It was like,
they archived the entire external storage repo, not just the EFS Provisioner.
yeah,
they're moving it.
They renamed it or moved it. Yeah, so it's there's a lot of stuff here.
All right, this is just about as clear as mud.
I use the EFS CSI solution.
Are you aware of a blog
You're
post
using
or
it,
anything that's
but
saying,
Brian, you're not using multiple volumes on the same EFS, are you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So that's the problem.
are
So
you
what we
aware of a
like to-
blog?
We
You
like
aware
to
of a
turn.
blog? Go ahead.
We like to turn EFS into the default storage class for Kubernetes. That way our EBS volumes are not zone locked, and it makes it very easy to recover pods in new availability zones. Especially nice when you're doing rolling updates of nodes and stuff. But I guess you can't use then EFS as the default storage class with this driver, is my guess.
I see. Okay, I only use it for Prometheus backend.
Yeah.
Very, very small use case.
Yeah, I remember you switched to using this, or started by using this, and I was hoping you were going to be on the call, and I was going to ask you, how did you do the storage?
Well, I actually started by using Provisioner because you guys used it. The reason why I couldn't do that is because I believe it's because I VPC peer into the EFS VPC, and with VPC peering, I had to like separately create like a I guess like the NFS mounting wasn't working properly. I honestly forget what exactly was the issue, but there definitely was an issue for me using the Provisioner. I have to go back and look. I remember talking to you about it too, Eric, but it's been half a year.
Yeah, totally. I remember that. By the way, what did you end up doing with the? So you had the problem because Brian Ty is doing ephemeral blue-green clusters for their environments, so it's pretty rad. They're running Prometheus on that. You had a problem where Prometheus was coming up and using the same file system, right, and causing corruption. Did you resolve that, or what did you end up doing for that?
So the Prometheus team suggested me moving away from NFS because that's just not something that they actively support, especially for my use case. They just said to switch to something like Thanos, which supports that specific use case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is why I'm switching to Thanos. It worked pretty well though. If like the second cluster came up and I deprovisioned the previous cluster within like a decently short amount of time frame, then the corruption wouldn't occur. But if like I had two clusters running for a few hours, then that's kind of when I would see. I don't know the exact time, but
this is like saying, this would happen if you had two Prometheuses running with the same EBS volume, or anything like, this is not like, this is not an EFS problem. This is an architecture problem. And it has worked really well for us, where you don't accidentally have two Prometheuses trying to write to the same.
Yeah.
I can confirm that even one Prometheus with one EBS drive is gonna corrupt that drive if you get anywhere close to the limits and it's killed. The only way to use it at scale is to use in-memory storage for it. I've fought with this for months.
EFS has been working phenomenal for us, though. EF with the Frank S.
Yeah, EFS works amazing when I don't have to do a blue-green cluster deploy. And for the most part, it actually works pretty well even when I do the switchover. I've just ran into the like data corruption a couple times.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. You're rolling out the Thanos as well. One thing that was interesting to me, KubeCost, we asked those guys on what their experience has been. And so KubeCost is a platform for cost visibility and like chargebacks within Kubernetes, so you can understand where your money's going. They work with a lot of big installations of Prometheus, and they said they have over 50 customers running Thanos in production. So that's a pretty large scale for one small company to be working with that many companies. All right, but yeah, Thanos is rad. I like the I forget what it's called, the proxy that dedupes all the metrics. We've had good luck with that. All right, moving on then to questions in Slack.
Going back to EFS Provisioner for a second, in general, if you guys are using a tool, it's whatever, it's tool XYZ, and all of a sudden you see, oh my gosh, they deprecated tool XYZ. Like, how soon are you gonna get off of that? Like immediately, or are you gonna wait for, maybe a couple months or something until it starts getting some security vulnerabilities, or what? I mean, because it's EFS Provisioner is still out there, right? I mean, you could still use it, but they're not going to be maintaining it anymore.
It's this thing that it becomes just a liability at some point, where if you do encounter like it's incompatible with the next version of Kubernetes or something, now suddenly you're locked from upgrading. This is a good question, and it comes up frequently, like even with like the Terraform AWS 3.0 provider. Like, dude, just because it came out, we don't need to upgrade right away to it. Like, if the modules do what they say they do, and the features that you need are all supported, there's no incentive really to accelerate that migration to the next version. I guess that relates a little bit to this. Like, I think there's a little bit of inertia. There's a little bit of grace while you're operating on a deprecated technology until it becomes a problem, but you want to have that backlog item to investigate ways to get off of it. Continued investment in basically tech debt. But this ecosystem moves too fast. I feel like that trying to just avoid the deprecations and avoid all the updates, that's a full-time job on Kubernetes for a few people, depending on, I guess, how much you're using Kubernetes. But
oh yeah, no question. When you're I work with a lot of legacy programs that are data center, VMware vSphere, whatever, and something that's 2 years old is like brand spanking new for them.
yeah.
And for us, it's like it's already done and gone. Like we got to move on to something else after 2 years.
Yeah. It's like, the vision I get in my head is like, the light we see coming from stars has traveled for, millions of years. That star might not even exist anymore. But the light reaches Enterprise finally. Yeah. Anybody have any other opinions on that? On how soon to move off deprecated technology or how soon to update?
Do you guys have alternatives already for EFS?
So this announcement was 4 days ago. It came up because we are going through the process of upgrading one of our customers to Helm 3, and at the process updating all the releases, and then we realized this happened. So no, it was it was just a bummer. We're looking for. I was hoping somebody here would say that they know the answer for how to use the CSI EFS provisioner for storage classes, or if there's any issue open for it. All right, Mike Martin posts, hi all, I'm trying to put together a career journey for SREs in our company. Does anyone have any examples, whether public, you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, this is me. So
almost like an internal job description.
Yeah, so
more context, Michael?
Sure, yeah. So selfishly, in our company, we have this career matrix or career journey, we're beginning to call it. And the task now is like, all right, how do you go from software engineer to senior software engineer to principal? But then going through all those kind of journeys or those descriptions, there's the DevOps / SRE team that I'm on that we're kind of left out, where most of us have ops-minded backgrounds, more so than like software engineering. And right now, to get to senior software engineering, it's like, oh, can build a full stack app. And it's like, All right, or that's just an example. So it's like, I'm curious if anybody had any SRE minded, almost like a job description, but more of people that are trying to transition from, whether a system engineer to an SRE and so on and so forth.
Some organization just open sourced a bunch of documentation like this. I saw it via our SuiteOps community. I don't remember what channel I saw it in, but it was in the past 7 days.
Really? Okay.
And it was like a matrix of all these things. Let me, anybody want to riff on that while I dig around a little bit? All right. Well, I'll look that up if I find it. I will share it. Yeah. So just following up with you, Andrew, was this helpful in the end? You did the poll here for the NPS score of DevOps at your company, at quote unquote DevOps. How much would people refer their company? Based
helpful
on
or encouraging?
Yeah.
Very different answers. I mean, all right, so this is a score. When you do the score, you do the percentage of 1 through 6. You do the percentage of 9s and 10s minus the percentage of 1 through 6, and you throw out 7s and 8s. So in this case, there's 11 plus 5 is 16 plus 7 is 24, 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 23 pluses, 12 minuses out of however many there are. That'll give you the score.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a positive score.
Mm-hmm.
My company is not a positive score.
Oh no. Well, it'd be interesting if you followed back with the final promoter score of people in the SuiteOps community. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I'll calculate it and put it there.
Yeah. That'd be cool. By the way, I shared a link. This was done actually a year ago, but it just came up in conversation. I tell kind of my story, traveling for a couple of years. This was back in 2014, 2015, and kind of, my story. So if that sounds interesting, check out the random channel and the podcast there. Let's see, let's go back to Slack office hours, see if there's another question I can answer. So yeah, sorry, Mike, didn't have really anything right off the bat for you.
I liked the one that, yeah.
Yeah, I posted something above, Eric, about how people are doing Terraform workflows, but I mean, there's 2 minutes left. I don't know if it would make sense to jump into it.
Yeah. This is a good one.
And I feel like I know kind of where your answer is going for this, but I would love to see how other people are trying to do this type of thing,
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is a great one. Let's lead with this one next week if it's not a blocker. I will pin that one. I guess that's maybe what we should do is anytime there's a question, maybe pin it. That way we can just go to the pins and quickly see all the questions. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I forget, with pins, can everyone can see the pins, right? Cool.
Yep.
All right. I think then rather than open up, I had some interesting questions. Tune in next week. We'll get to these then. Tips on managing AWS key pairs with Terraform. Tips on when to use Terraform remote state versus data sources versus SSM parameter store. Tips on when to use CDK-TF over pure CDK on AWS, or why use it at all. Fascinatingly enough, we already have a unit case of one customer using CDK-TF and can share some feedback on that. So I'd like to do that next week.
2 and 3 are definitely interesting to me. Did you just come up with those in the past hour?
Yeah, basically what I do is the first half hour before office hours every week, I go through the channels, go through some internal notes that we have at Cloud Posse and put together the agenda before so we can cover it.
Cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Looks like we've reached the end of the hour, and that about wraps things up. Remember to register for our weekly office hours if you haven't already. Go to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours to register for these, and you'll get an invite to your email box. You can also share this with anyone on your team. We are an inclusive community for anyone who takes an interest in what we do. If you want to book a session with me at some time, just go to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz, and I look forward to talking with you. Thanks again, everyone, for sharing. We always learn so much from this. A recording of this call will be posted to the Office Hours channel, as well as syndicated to our podcast at podcast.cloudposse.com, as well as to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/cloudposse. See you all next week, same place, same time.